frame. Here. So good morning, everyone. So far we have completed so many topics in theory. Since most of our topics in theory is over, now slowly we are starting the teaching of practicals. So in that series, today I'm going to tell you how to examine the sensory system. Now you know in nervous system, at least we have two limbs. One is the afferent sensor system, and next is the efferent motor system, and there's integrating centers both in the spinal cord as well as the central nervous system, the brain. Now the sensor system is based on the presence of various sensor receptors and the afferent pathway. The various sensor receptors, they may be prenerve endings, or sometimes they may be encapsulated organs such as Pacinian corpuscle or cross end bulb, etc. So overall, the various sensations can be classified into three categories. One is general sensation, other is the special senses, that we have already learned about the vision, hearing, taste, smell, etc. And some are called visceral sensations, for which the sensory inputs start from within the body. So they also reach the brain. So today we'll talk about the general sensations and how they are being examined practically. So today this will go for at least 2 lectures. Today I'll tell you about the preliminary aspect, how to examine the theoretical aspect of it. The next class I'll show you certain videos whereby you will get a practical knowledge on how to examine the sensor system. So as you are at home, not in the lab, of course, wherein you may have certain minimal things with which you can also practice those simple tasks at your home, so that you will have some exposure. But anyway, once you come back after the lockdown, we'll tell you with demonstration, live demonstration, how to examine each of these aspects. Of course, don't worry. Now today, try to learn only the theoretical aspect of it, so that once you come back from home, so you will be able to examine them very easily. So the various general sensations are, first is the tactile sensibility or touch sensation. Again, the touch, we have to examine different aspects like what we call fine touch and tactile localization and tactile discrimination, or otherwise some authors call it as 2-point discrimination. Then there is something called crude touch. Then comes pain, wherein we will examine how to examine the superficial pain as well as deep pain. Then comes sensation of position sense, or otherwise called as proprioception. Then how to examine the vibration sensation. Then we'll examine the temperature, so that is heat and cold. Then you will also learn how to examine what we call stereognosis. So all these things will go slowly one after another. So before we get into those various sensory modalities, today let us see the section of spinal cord showing the various tracts as well as the sensation which they carry. So I'll show you the cross section of spinal cord, and after that we'll come back to the as we are seeing. So this side we have, on the right hand side we will see all the sensory tracts. So this tract is called as dorsal column tracts, or tract of gracilis and cuneatus. Tract of gracilis and cuneatus. So this is the fasciculus gracilis, and this is the cuneatus, cuneate fasciculus. So this dorsal column tracts carries most of the general sensation, especially the fine touch as well as tactile localization and tactile discrimination or 2-point discrimination, as well as vibration sensation, position sensation, as well as stereognosis. All these sensations are carried by the dorsal column tracts. Now we have the spinothalamic tract, which is the anterior and lateral. The anterior spinothalamic tract carries the crude touch. What is the difference between fine touch and crude touch? आपसे कुमार ఉంటే రమ్మని చెప్పండి. వీళ్ళంతా మధ్యలో ఫోన్ చేయరు. త్వరగా మాట్లాడు. ఏంటి సడన్ గా ఏదో వీడియో స్టాప్ చేద్దాం. ఇది వచ్చింది. Sorry for the technical interruption. So just you have seen the dorsal column tracts carries multiple general sensation like fine touch, tactile localization, tactile discrimination, and the vibration sensation, as well as stereognosis and position sensation. As far as the spinothalamic tracts are concerned, the anterior spinothalamic tract, which carries the crude touch. Difference between fine and crude touch is the fine touch is the low intensity stimulus, but whereas the receptors can perceive low intensity touch, but whereas the anterior spinothalamic tract, which in order to be sensed, it should be of little higher intensity. And you have lateral spinothalamic tract, which carries the pain and temperature. And we have the spinocerebellar anterior and posterior, and they carry the unconscious kinesthetic sensation or position sense, and they carry the fibers to the cerebellum. So now we have seen the position of various sensory tracts and the sensation they carry. Now, as far as the location of fibers are concerned, in the dorsal column, medially this fibers from sacral part of the body are located, then followed by lumbar, then followed by thoracic, then followed by cervical. That means those fibers arising from the cervical segment of the body, they are placed more laterally, but whereas those are coming from sacral segments, they are placed more centrally. But when it comes to the lateral spinothalamic tract, the position of fibers are just opposite of that. The sacral fibers are placed more medially, and the cervical area fibers are placed more medially. So from the here it is cervical to sacral, from medial to lateral, but here from it is the same cervical to sacral is from lateral to medial. So that is the way the fibers are being represented. So this shows the various sensory tracts and their position, as well as the type of sensory modality they convey. Now we need to know the next is the dermatomes. Dermatomes are the part of the cutaneous structure or skin which is innervated by a particular nerve segment. So now we are examining all the sensory system just to probably identify any sensory loss and to a particular segment of the body, and we need to attribute to the particular nerve or a branch of nerve. That is our overall aim of examining the sensory system. So in order to know that, we should know the position of the fibers, so that suppose in the dorsal column that there is a lesion, suppose lateral lesion will lead to this loss of sensation from cervical segments. Suppose the lesion at the medial part, then the fibers which are arising from sacral segment, they are being damaged. So those areas will get affected. So this is just to show the position of the sensory fibers. The next, if you know the dermatomes now, and then that is the part of the skin which receive the inputs from various the spinal nerves, that will tell you about, or it will help you to identify the location as well as the type of nerve fiber which is being involved in that particular lesion. Or in now you can see these are the cut section of various levels. Now this is the dermatomes. Now you can say these are all the cervical, the spinal nerves are in the cervical segments. They sense these areas, and these are from the thoracic segment. This is from the lumbar segment. This is the sacral segment. Now you can see again cervical, thoracic, is the lumbar, and especially sacral on the back side only. Now you can see these are all the spinal cord, and again different colors are given for the different regions. Now again different color. This is the cervical segment innervates both the upper limbs, and again a part of the head as well as the neck region, as well as the entire trunk is innervated by thoracic segments from T1 to T12, and this is the lumbar segment which innervates these aspects, and this is the sacral segment at the back. It innervates these regions. So accordingly, whenever there's a particular area where particular sensibility is lost, then we can attribute to the particular segment where the lesion we can assume. Again, same thing. Yes, here also in the upper limb, you can see a different subdivisions. You can see this area is innervated by C4 segment, this is the C5 segment, this is C6 segment, C7, C8, and this area, the middle aspect, T1, T2, and T3, here on the opposite side. So this is the C4 cervical plexus, and this is the upper lateral cuneatus nerve of the arm. This is the axillary, and this is the nerve by the radial, and this is the musculocutaneous nerve. This is the medial cord. These are all again the medial cord, and these are all by intercostobranchial nerve. So from this you can say which nerve innervates which particular part, so that we can attribute loss of the cutaneous sensation to a particular nerve fiber. Again here, these three regions are again the part of the fifth cranial, that is a trigeminal nerve. It is having three divisions. This is the ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular divisions. Of course, when you examine, you have to examine these segments separately, so that which branch is being lesioned, you can easily identify depending upon the person's loss of various sensory modality. We need to examine separately the ophthalmic region, maxillary region, and mandibular regions. Again, you can see this area is separated by the median nerve, this area by radial nerve, this is the musculocutaneous, and this is medial antebrachial cutaneous nerve, this is the ulnar nerve. So depending upon some particular area is being pain, or there's anesthesia, or anesthesia, or hyperalgia, all these things can be attributed to the corresponding nerve. Sometimes you may feel numbness, pain, and all those sensations can be attributed to the a lesion in the particular nerve which is applying these particular areas. Again, these are the dermatomes, various dermatomes, as well as the segment of spinal nerve which is supplying these areas. Yes. Now, with this background, now let us see how to examine the sensory system. Yes. So before going into the proper examination, we have some general consideration that before any systemic examination, as you are aware, we need to do the general examination. After doing general examination with vital data, then go for the systemic examination. And the system examination, before beginning the sensory examination, the patient should be explained the exact nature of the test, as well as carefully instructed to what he is supposed to do. Suppose what you are trying to do and how he has to respond. Everything has to be explained in detail. Especially now, in the new curriculum, we are having OSP, wherein the objective structured practical examination, you need to examine in front of an examiner, wherein all these aspects carries marks. Everything will be observed by the examiner. Whether you are giving proper instruction, are you taking the proper instrument to the practical, as well as how you are eliciting the response and how you are recording. Everything is counted. So we need to give a proper instruction. And here care should be taken not to tire the patient out or prejudice his mind by suggestions. So don't give any suggestions. Try to get his own impression of the test and how he felt, whether he is feeling those sensations, etc. You should get information. And especially when you are examining the sensory system, in order to ensure the accuracy, the patient's eye must be kept closed or should be covered most of the time we ask the subject to close his or her eyes. Then we do all this examination and we try to get the response. And here, patients should be instructed properly in order to get a prompt response. So whenever suppose we are doing fine touch, suppose you touch with a particular part of the body of the cotton wisp, he should say yes. That instruction should be given well in advance. Suppose if the response we get with late means it may be due to slower conduction of the nerve impulse, so that we should avoid. So that's why you should give proper instruction as soon as he or she felt a particular sensation, whether it may be pain or maybe cold or warm or maybe touch, he should promptly say yes. So with this introduction, now we'll go into the systemic examination. So as I said, first and foremost, we'll see how to test the tactile sensibility. Tactile means the touch sensation. As I said, except the crude touch, which is carried by the anterior spinothalamic tract. Again, the receptor is cutaneous macronal receptors, which can be done with the help of cotton wool or a brush, or even you can use a blunt object, or sometimes when nothing is there, you can even brush with your fingertip. So wherein this is carried by anterior spinothalamic tract. Now, the fibers of the anterior spinothalamic tract as well as the lateral spinothalamic tract, which carry the pain and temperature, they are the crossed fibers. But whereas all other sensations, they are ipsilateral fibers, meaning they carry sensation from the same side. But whereas crude touch, pain and temperature, especially spinothalamic tract, both anterior and lateral, they are crossed fibers. So whenever the sensation loss on one side, you should look for lesion on the other side, opposite side of the tract, because these sensations are carried by the crossed fibers, especially they cross obliquely. Normally, whenever there's lesion, the effect will be seen 1 or 2 segments below the level of lesion on the opposite side. So with this thing, now we completed the crude touch. Now we'll come to the fine touch. Crude touch can be done by cotton wool. Take a wisp of cotton and touch different parts and try to ask. Whenever he is being touched, he will say yes. Or you can use a brush, or you can use a blunt object like maybe a pen with covered one, ballpoint pen, or even you can use a fingertip. With that, you suppose you touch, and the subject is asked to close his or her eyes. But whenever he or she is being touched, they will say, respond yes. So here you try to examine as many as dermatomes possible. So on the face, neck, as well as on the trunk, as well as on the back, and on the upper limb, lower limb, and as many dermatomes as possible, you try to examine these things. And whenever you are touching or examining on one side, you should make sure you should do it on the opposite side. Bilateral examination is compulsory. You should try to compare on the both sides. So when it comes to the fine touch, here also you use the cotton wisp, the cotton wool. With that, you try to test or touch as many dermatomes as possible. As far as practicable, especially if a male subject is available, then you make him naked till the waistline. Then you try to touch the various parts on opposite sides quickly, and you will also respond quickly. Yes, yes, yes. Like that, you will do it on as many dermatomes as possible. So this is about the fine touch. So accordingly, you then note in your observation book. So various parts, you just say right side, left side, as well as the maybe the head and neck, trunk, upper limb, lower limb. Then you try to exit, right? Fine touch perceived on the right side as well as on the left side, like that you have to observe. Then of course I tell you the perform also the next class. Next comes the tactile localization. Here what you do, here you touch a particular part with the cotton wisp, and with the subject closing his or her eyes, then ask him or her to identify the part which is being touched with the tip of the pen. Suppose you may be touching a particular part, and they need to identify which part is being touched. So Sometimes they may not be exactly putting the fingertip at the point where you have touched. Sometimes there may be a difference. So try to note the distance between the point which you have actually touched and where they are denoting. So this indicates how far they are good tactile localization. You should do it with the patient or subject closing his or her eyes. So this is called tactile localization. You are touching a particular part and then in turn will try to identify the part which being touched with the closed eyes with the help of the tip of the pen, ballpoint pen. Next comes tactile discrimination. So for which we use the compass aesthesiometer. So your compass will have 2 points. So now you try to make the 2 prongs, or let's say 2 points as close as possible and try to touch and ask the subject whether they are identifying it as a single touch or as a 2 touch or 2 point being touched. Now by looking at the dermatomes, just the figure I just now showed to you, the dermatomes are densely or closely packed in the fingertips as well as on the face as well as on the lips and other areas. But whereas on other areas, especially in the upper limb and lower limb, especially on the back, the dermatomes are widely apart. So in tactile discrimination, we try to identify the minimum separable distance between these 2 points in order to identify these two as 2 different stimuli. So which are very less, it may be few mm, 1 to 2 mm in the case of fingertips as well as the lips, etc. At the same time, in order to identify as a 2 different stimuli, and especially at the back, the 2 points in the compass aesthesiometer has to be at least wide apart, at least by 6 to 7 centimeters. So even suppose you keep at 6 centimeters also, still sometime they may say it as a single stimulus. It shows where the dermatomes are kept widely apart. So you need to be, the space has to be increased in order to identify or recognize as 2 different stimuli. But whereas on the fingertips, etc., where the dermatomes are densely packed, where even the minimal separable distance is adequate to identify them as separate stimuli. So which indicates the tactile discrimination. Again, here also the patient should be asked to close his or her eyes and you do things and you ask their response whether they are able to perceive as a single stimulus or 2 different stimuli. Accordingly, you try to keep on increasing the distance between the 2 points, the compass aesthesiometer, and try to identify. Now try to note the minimum separable distance in the fingertips and the forearm, on the face, and on the back, etc. You can measure the distance between the 2 points, which is required to recognize them as 2 different stimuli. That you do under tactile discrimination. Now, the absence of tactile sensibility, that is the ability to perceive the touch sensation or tactile localization, discrimination, when these things are absent, this is termed as anesthesia. Anesthesia means absence of tactile sensibility. And sometimes when the tactile sensibility is decreased, then it is called as hypoesthesia. And when the tactile sensibility is increased, it's called as hyperesthesia. One should identify what is tactile sensibility and what are things which are being tested and how it is being tested and what are the receptors and what is the tract which carries everything I told you. Under tactile sensibility, you test for the fine touch, tactile localization, tactile discrimination, as well as you can also do for crude touch, of course, which is carried by an anterior spinothalamic tract, but whereas all other things, fine touch, localization, discrimination, etc., they are carried by the dorsal column tracts, dorsal column medial lemniscal system. So when these things are present, then there is no question of anesthesia. When the absence of tactile sensibility is called as anesthesia. And decreased hypoesthesia, increased hyperesthesia. One should be able to denote, and you try to divide in your observation copy right and left side, different parts of the body and what you are doing. Try to put as perceived. Suppose fine touch perceived at various parts, as well as tactile localization at different parts, and what is the distance between the point where you touch and what they are pointing out. Similarly, for tactile discrimination, we try to know the distance between the 2 points of the compass meter in order to identify them as two different. So try to make note of these things. So of course, I'll tell you the pro forma in the next class and as well as certain videos. Next comes the stereognosis. What is stereognosis? It is the ability of the individual to identify a known object, not an unknown object. It's a known object. Ability of the individual to identify a known object with closed eyes by appreciating its size, shape, as well as texture. Suppose you close your eyes, the subject asks him to close the eyes, then give certain known object, maybe a pen drive. They will just feel it, they say it is a pen drive, or give a 1 rupee coin, or they may give a different shapes, maybe a triangle, or maybe a prism, or maybe a sphere, a spherical structure, etc. Or depending upon the, or you may give, sometimes you can give a harmonic purse, that they will simply feel it, they try to identify what is an object. Here you should give a known object. So they try to identify the known object with closed eyes by appreciating its size, shape, and texture. That's called as stereognosis. This particular sensibility is carried by the dorsal column tracts, and this stereognosis is sometimes may be absent in Thebes dorsalis, etc., or certain parietal lobe lesion, etc. Whenever this ability is lost, that is called as astereognosis. Astereognosis means absence of stereognosis. That is inability to identify a known objects with closed eyes. This is normally there. That is called as stereognosis. So again, for this also, the receptors are touch and pressure receptors. Touch and pressure receptors are responsible. That is the cutaneous mechanoreceptors. Again, carried by the dorsal column tracts. The fibers are ipsilateral. So that's about the stereognosis. Next comes the sensibility of pain. Pain. So as I said, pain can be divided into at least 2 different types here, at least for examining sensory modality. One as superficial pain, other as the deep pain. What is a superficial pain? Superficial pain is arising from a particular superficial structure which is very well localized, well defined structure. Normally, you can identify the part, but whereas it's normally sharp and well demarcated and very well localized. But whereas deep pains are ill localized, sometimes they may be radiating pain. Normally, the superficial pain, they try to increase the heart rate, blood pressure, and respiration, etc. But whereas the deep pain, they can cause hypotension, sometimes they cause nausea, vomiting, sweating, etc. So this is again, this is all you might have learned in theory, but still, when it comes to the examining the superficial pain, you can use the normal domestic pin or the hypodermic needle. The pins here, you ask the subject to close the eyes and try to touch with the pin at different points, and as soon as he or she feels pain, they will say yes. So you try to note here also, like your cotton beads, try to examine on as many dermatomes as possible on the face, especially for three different dimensions of the trigeminal nerve, ophthalmic, maxillary and mandibular, as well as on the neck region, as well as on the trunk, especially on the front, as well as back and the upper limb, lower limb, etc. And as many as exposed parts possible to try to examine the superficial pain. As soon as they say yes, they are being perceived, then you write perceived. And Next is the deep pain. How to elicit the deep pain? The deep pain can be elicited by squeezing the muscle. Squeeze the muscle against the bone, or squeeze the tendo, actually certain tendons, etc. Try to squeeze them. Then the type of pain what you feel is the deep pain. So both you can do superficial as well as deep pain, and try to record the response of the subject. Again, the first and foremost instruction, again, the patient should close his or her eyes. Then you test the thing, get the response and record it, and try to do examination on both sides, bilateral examination. So here the receptor is free nerve ending, which is carried by lateral spinothalamic tract. The fibers are contralateral fibers. Here the instrument used is either pin, or sometimes you may pinch the muscle or tendo achilis, by which you try to examine the pain sensation. So absence of pain sensation is called as analgesia. Absence of pain is called as analgesia, and decreased pain sensibility is called as hypoalgesia, and increased pain sensibility is called as hyperalgesia. Sometimes hyperalgesia may be there in capes dorsalis, etc. Even normally a simple non-innocuous, otherwise painless stimuli, sometimes for them it may be a painful one. Even from trivial injury or trivial thing, they will get increased pain. It may be due to capes dorsalis, or due to sometimes the deep-seated parietal lobe lesions, or sometimes the lesion in the thalamus. That's why sometimes it's called as thalamic pain. You might have heard sometimes sciatica, where the nerve root is being compressed. So they always allow severe pain sensibility in the lower limbs. The pain will be sustaining for hours. There will be excruciating pain. It may be dental pain, like that. So many other areas where whenever the free nerve endings or the pain receptors being stimulated, we feel the pain. Especially in sciatica pain, what they do? Sometimes when you go to neurosurgeon, they may do laminectomy just to decrease the compression. Or sometimes when the pain is continuing for long, it is not cured by some of the anti-analgesics or the analgesic system, then they may sometimes they may cut the nerve roots, the nerve ending which carry the pain session. Sometimes they may be cut, which is called as rhizotomy. It is one of the procedures to relieve the pain, sometimes in sciatica and certain other conditions. So now we have seen about pain. One is superficial pain, other is deep pain, and both are carried by nerve endings, which is the fibers are in the lateral spinothalamic tract, and which can be superficial pain is tested using pin, and deep pain by squeezing the muscle or pressing it against the bone. So this is how we examine the pain. Next comes the proprioception, or otherwise called as position sense. Position sense. Now we know within our skeletal muscles, which is mostly made up of extrafacial muscle fibers, within them we have less contractile intrafacial muscle fibers. They are grouped together as a spindle. We call them as a muscle spindle, which is a proprioceptor or position sense receptor. Along with the muscle spindle, there are other like the Golgi tendon organs, etc. They carry the position sense, which is also carried by the dorsal column tracts. So now here ask the subject to close the eyes, then try to make a movement, maybe rotation of your head, suppose right, ask them to turn your left, right, or forward, backward bending, or maybe upper limb, try to move them, suppose abduction, adduction, extension, like this. Try to make different movements and ask them whether which part of the body is being moved, in which direction it's being moved, whether it is a abduction or adduction or extension or rotation, like this. Whenever you try to make different movements and the subject able to identify this movement and try to tell you which part is being moved, in which direction is being moved. So try to make a note of it. You try to do it on one side, try to do it on the opposite. This is one way. Other way, especially in lower limb, etc., you try to make different type of movements, maybe like extension of the so here you can extend, or sometimes you may do flexion or etc. Different type of movements you do. And suppose you leave a particular hand in a particular position, and the patient being with closed eyes, ask them to mimic on the other hand, do it on the other hand. Suppose you keep like this on one hand, the subject also will do it on the opposite. That means he or she knows the position sense. That means they know, they perceive which part is being moved and which position is being kept. So that is also another way of doing proprioception. Here we are testing which is carried by proprioceptors, especially muscle spindle and Golgi tendon organs. They are main proprioceptors, and they carry the sensation. And these are again carried by dorsal column, medial lemniscal system. They are ipsilateral fibers. So whenever the proprioception is lost, especially in individuals where again in perhaps dorsalis, etc., the proprioception sensibility or position sense is lost. So what they do, whenever they close their eyes, they will not be able to do simple manipulations. Even for buttoning, unbuttoning of your shirt, etc., they will not be able to do it because they don't know in which direction the finger has to be moved or rotated in order to do this particular task. So even simplest motor task will be difficult for them. So this condition is called as ataxia. So as soon as they close they open their eyes, with the help of the visual inputs, sometimes they may be able to do these acts. So then this is called as sensory type of ataxia. Sensory type of ataxia. In cerebellar ataxia, even with their open eyes also, they may not be able to do these kind of maneuvers, or even they may not be able to maintain a normal posture, etc. That is called as cerebellar ataxia. So sometimes it may be seen in the dorsals, etc. So that is about the proprioception. Here what you do, you try to make a movement and ask subject to appreciate the movement and accordingly make a note of it. And they should know which part of the body is being moved and which direction it is being moved. They will be able to tell. And you try to make a movement and keep a particular lower limb, etc., in a particular position. Ask them to do the same on the opposite side. Suppose they are able to do it properly, then their proprioception is normal. So whenever there's a loss of proprioception, sometimes it may lead to ataxia. So we have seen about the tactile sensibility, then pain, and stereognosis, proprioception, etc. Now next we'll see about the temperature. To test the temperature, we need to have at least 3 test tubes, and having one with cold water and one with warm water, one with the normal water in the room temperature. And here also the subject is asked to close his or her eyes and try to touch the different parts of the body randomly with these tubes. Sometimes with hot, sometimes cold, sometimes with normal, and they will be able to identify whether it is hot or cold or a normal temperature. So here normally we do it with test tubes, and the receptor for this also free nerve endings. This is carried by lateral spinothalamic tract, which is a contralateral fiber. So whenever there is a lesion, the effect will be seen on the opposite side, 1 or 2 segments lower than the level of lesion because of the oblique crossing. The temperature is very easily perceived or tested by keeping the test tubes of containing cold, hot water. Just simply touch it at different parts with the closed eye. They will be able to identify whether it is a sensation is hot or cold. You make a note of it. So, and different parts again, you have to do it and as many terminals as possible, as well as you have to compare on both sides. That is, bilateral examination always has to be carried out. So the next sensation is the vibration sensation. We have seen about pain, crude touch, fine touch, deep pressure, etc. Low pressure just we have completed. Then vibration sensation. Here, take a tuning fork of low frequency, especially 128 hertz. Then vibrate the tuning fork so that the prongs should never be touched. You should only touch the base of it. Suppose the vibrating end, once you touch it, the vibration will be lost. One should not use the tuning fork of higher frequency because high frequency vibrations are not very well perceived. So always you should never use frequencies more than 256. So the best thing will be 128 hertz. You vibrate the tuning fork and keep the base of the tuning fork over some bony prominence, maybe on the upper limb, on the trunk, or also the lower limb, especially the lateral medial malleolus, or the shin of the tibia, and on the knee joint, or here also we can keep here as well as any of the bony prominences, where not over the muscle. So now vibrate the tuning fork, don't touch the vibrating ends. Now keep the base of the tuning fork over the bony prominence. Not all the subject, whether he or she is able to perceive the vibration sensation. When they say yes, you write perceive. Sometimes you can compare between both sides. Suppose as soon as they say they are no longer perceiving the vibration sensation, take out the tuning fork and keep it on the opposite side. Then check whether they are able to perceive again. Or sometimes when they are no longer perceiving the vibration sensation, take out the tuning fork, keep it on you so that you will compare the examiner with the subject. Suppose still if you are able to perceive the vibration sensation means his ability to perceive vibration sensation is diminished or decreased in comparison to you. Understand? So like that you can compare between both sides of the same subject as well as with the examiner. So vibrate the tuning fork, never touch the vibrating ends. Carefully hold the base of the tuning fork over the bony prominences, not over the muscle or the skin. So over the bony prominences, especially wherever the, of course, over the skin only, over the bony prominences. When you keep it, then they will feel the vibration sensation. It's always advisable to keep a low frequency tuning forks, especially of 128, never above 256. So we have completed almost most of the sensory modalities. That is the tactile sensibility, crude touch, and next comes the pressure. This is nothing but pressure is nothing but the constant touch. Constant touch again is also carried by the Pacinian corpuscle or Ruffinian organs. This is carried by dorsal column tracts, ipsilateral fibers. And here you can use a blend object like your pen, etc. You try to apply certain pressure over different areas and ask the subject whether they're able to feel the pressure or not. So here you use the blend object, or sometimes you can use the one press, aesthesiometer, etc. Again, there are separate instrument is there. I'll tell you in the next class when I show you also. So wherein we can use those things, you can compare with person to person, different parts, how much pressure should be applied in order to perceive the pressure sensation. So here you should know, you try to apply a pressure over different parts of the body with the patient being with closed eyes. Then you try to elicit the response whether they're able to appreciate the pressure or not. So accordingly, you make a note of it in your observation copy, part of the different parts, and right and left side, and whether they're able to perceive the pressure or not. So that completes the sensor system examination. You should know what are the various sensory modalities and what are the various receptors which carry the particular sensory modality, and what is the pathway through which they reach the central nervous system, and which is the tool used. We have used here you use a finger or toe of the patient here, tuning fork, etc. Which tool is being used for different tests, and how you do it, what are the instructions to be given to the subject, and what you do, and what is the response of the subject, how it is recorded. You should know. And as I said, you should give proper instruction and always do as many dermatomes as possible, as well as do bilateral examination, and as far as practicable, always stand by the right side of the subject. So these are the basic rules with which you should examine, and you should try to put your observation on the record book. So this is only a theoretical aspect, and you should know little bit about the abnormalities, what is anesthesia, what is analgesia, etc. And suppose we read the pathway for these sensations, that will help you to identify probably where there is a lesion and which segment is being affected, for which you should know about the dermatome rule or dermatomes, where is dermatomes, their location, and which nerve supply, which part of the body, if you know, so that by carefully knowing this basic information and carefully doing this examination, probably we'll be able to identify which is there any sensory loss is there or not, but any sensory loss is there, where it is there, you can easily locate. That is the purpose of this particular practical. So when you come for the next class, I'll show you or play certain videos where how each of these things being tested on a subject and how it is being recorded. I'll tell you the pro forma and where how you have to record your results. That also I'll tell you. Now to sum up, sometimes certain individuals, they may complain of certain abnormal sensations, as if some itching or some pressure or pain, etc. Obviously, there won't be anything, as if an insect is crawling. That's called formication. They will complain of certain pain like tightness, pain or pressure, or itching, or insect crawling, etc. These things sometimes they may feel. Obviously, suppose look at that particular point or part of the skin, there won't be obviously nothing. So these are all called as sensory inattention. So sensory inattention, especially whenever you feel as if the insect is crawling, that we call it as a formication. These things sometimes may be there as an abnormality. So that also you should be able to identify whether the subject is having any sensory inattention or not. But wherein you will complain of certain sensation, of course, some complain of sometimes increased temperature at a particular point, that is, or maybe certain insect crawling, or maybe itch, and so on and so forth. So these things normally, if you look at that particular point, nothing will be there, but still they will complain of this. This we call as the sensory inattention. It is an abnormal sensory sensation wherein there is no obvious stimuli. So with this, we'll call it a day. The rest of the thing, the practical aspect of this, we'll see in the next class. Thank you.
Okay.